Good morning and welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa, Ashe, and today I have some breaking news for you guys, some heartbreaking news. The Queen of Soul, American legendary singer Aretha Franklin, has died at age 76 in her Detroit home due to pancreatic cancer. So we're going to take some time this morning to just remember her, to talk about her life, her accomplishments, some of her songs that were huge hits, and we're just going to go through and really honor her. So thank you guys all for tuning in so far. Appreciate each and every single one of you. And make sure that you can also send me your favorite songs by her, your thoughts and opinions of her. Just to remember her, please send them to me to my Twitter at Alyssa RSBN. That would be much appreciated. Sorry for some technical issues there. I know that we did not have sound in the beginning, but we are back up now. So thank you all for tuning in. Really appreciate you guys. And yes, as one of our moderators, Barbara Braley, says, remember, go to that top left corner of the chat box and switch from top chat to live chat on YouTube so that you will be able to see all of that. Okay, so first I'm going to go through what happened this morning with you guys. So she actually passed away at 9:50 a.m. Eastern Time, surrounded by family at her home in Detroit. And I'm going to throw up a picture of her for you guys. So a family statement released by her publicist, Gwendolyn Quinn, said that Franklin's official cause of death was due to advanced pancreatic cancer of the neuroendocrine type, which was confirmed by her oncologist, Dr. Philip Phillips, of the Karamos Cancer Institute in Detroit. So Aretha Franklin was one of the most transcendent cultural figures of the 20th century. She was raised on eclectic music diet of gospel, R&B, classical, and jazz, and she blossomed out of her father's Detroit church to become the most distinguished female black artist of all time. And this is from USA Today. Breaking boundaries while placing nearly 100 hits on Billboard's R&B chart, 20 of them reaching number 1. So she was coronated in the 1960s the Queen of Soul, and she leaves a huge legacy of classic songs that includes Respect. I know you said that's your favorite, Barbara Braley and the British Patriot. And You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, Chain of Fools, Baby I Love You, Angel, Think, Rocksteady, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and Freeway of Love, along with a best-selling gospel catalog. So her death actually follows several years of painstakingly concealed medical issues, which led to show cancellations and extended absences from the public eye. So in March, she actually canceled 2 concerts scheduled in New Jersey. And according to a statement from her management team, she was following doctor's orders to stay off the road and rest completely for 2 months, and that she was extremely disappointed that she could not perform as she had expected and hoped to. So her most recent performance was on November 2nd, 2017 for the Elton John AIDS Foundation in New York. In the previous June, she was visibly feeble, but still summoning magic from her voice. And she played her final hometown Detroit show, an emotion-packed concert for thousands at an outdoor festival downtown. And she ended the performance with a then cryptic appeal to her hometown crowd when she said, "Please keep me in your prayers." So she actually had the opportunity and was really welcome to sing for presidents and royalty. And she befriended high-profile leaders such as Reverends Martin Luther King Jr. and Jesse Jackson. And amid the global glitter and acclaim, she remained loyal to her home region, living in the Detroit area for decades, including the Bloomfield Hills house, where she moved in the late 80s. And she told the Detroit Free Press in 2011, "My roots are there. The church is there. My family is there." And she said, "I like the camaraderie in Detroit, how we'll rally behind something that's really worthy and come to each other's assistance." And her voice was a singular force, earning her a multitude of laurels through the decades, including 18 Grammy Awards and the Presidential Medal of Freedom and honorary doctorates from a host of institutions. And in 1987, she became the first female artist inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and 7 years later, at age 52, the youngest recipient of a Kennedy Center honor. So she topped Rolling Stone's magazine 100 Greatest Singers of All Time list, and her signature hit, Respect, ranked number 4 on Songs of the Century, a 1999 project by the National Endowment for the Arts. And she performed at the inaugurations of U.S. Presidents Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, garnering global attention at the latter for her big fur hat with its crystal-studded bow, a piece of wardrobe now in the Smithsonian Institution. And her influence is vast and indelible. It's most obviously heard in the myriad of voices that followed her, from Mary J. Blige to Adele, and even male singers like Luther Vandross. But just as important is her broader social impact. She embodied American Black culture empathetically and without apology, through sheer force of talent, thrust it onto the global stage. So she revolutionized Black music and the way it was absorbed and perceived, helping to create a world where we take for granted that Beyonce can reign atop mainstream popular culture. So she was actually emotionally complex. She relished her diva status, but her vulnerabilities and insecurities always seemed to lurk just beneath the surface. Her public success masked a private life of turbulence and loss, making for an intriguing character driven by conflicting forces. And she was sassy but naturally shy, urbane but down home, confident but reckless. And that deep, complicated humanity imbued her music with authenticity. Her singing, soaked in feeling and executed with virtuoso skill, moved seamlessly among styles: gospel, soul, pop, blues, R&B, jazz, and even opera. And she belted, purred, seduced, testified, and even as the propulsive power left her voice in later years, she remained as expressive as ever, and her live performances continued to earn critical acclaim. She told Ebony magazine back in 1967, "I must do what is real in me in all ways." And this was when her string of hit singles, Respect, Baby I Love You, and Chain of Fools gave her her first major crossover success. So now we're going to kind of back up, get into her early life, and this is still from USA Today, but after this I'll be sharing different articles and sources with you guys. So she was born in Memphis on March 25th, 1942, and she moved at age 4 to Detroit when her father, the Reverend C.L. Franklin, took over duties at New Bethel Baptist Church. So for her, turmoil actually set in early. Her mother left Detroit for Buffalo, New York when she was 6 and died 4 years later. But still, Franklin grew up in an environment ideal for nurturing her skills, and her charismatic father was a preacher and singer with a national reputation, with sermons that became top-selling records and a gospel venue that toured the country. And that brought important musical figures into her orbit, including household guests such as James Cleveland, Mahalia Jackson, B.B. King, and Sam Cooke. And she grew up on Detroit's northwest side and was a childhood friend of Smokey Robinson. So she became a singing prodigy at New Bethel Church, where her father was a pastor, and her sisters, Carolyn and Irma, also honed their gospel skills. But it was Aretha who steadily emerged as the standout, and by age 14, she was accompanying her father on his gospel travels. So gospel was the main focus, but the Franklin household was teeming with a manner of all music. Back in 2011, she told the Free Press, "I heard classical music from the beginning. It was always in our home. As a teenager, I took more to R&B, but I always loved classical." So R&B music at the time was frowned upon by many in the traditional gospel world, but it was also welcome in the house. And the Reverend Franklin, progressive in politics and disposition, put up little resistance to the secular sounds exemplified by artists such as Cooke. So young Aretha absorbed the emotional power of music in many forms, whether in the throes of an ecstatic congregation or the intimacy of a close listening. And she recalled, "My older sister Irma was a big fan of Be My Love by Mario Lanza. How many times did we hear that in our house?" She said. Sylvia Robertson, Smokey's sister, used to visit Irma and play Be My Love, pressing their ears against the speakers and just crying. And she said, "I was quite young at the time, and I thought it was very funny that these girls were crying with their ears against the speaker. I didn't do that with the artists I heard then, such as Frankie Lyman, the Clovers, Laverne Baker, Ray Charles. As an adult, though, I began to perfectly understand it. When I heard someone knocking me out, I thought, okay, so this is what that was about." Now, in 1960, at age 18, she spurned a hometown offer from Berry Gordy's fledgling Motown label and opted to sign with New York's Columbia Records, where her demo tape had caught the ear of iconic talent scout John Hammond. And a year later, shortly after she married her manager Ted White, her Columbia debut was released. And that record set the tone for her 5-year, 9-album tenure at Columbia, where she was groomed as an interpreter of jazz and pop standards, presented as a chantonese at the piano. So she was quite masterful at the keyboard, and throughout her career, it was a skill overshadowed by her voice, although she played piano on most of the work for which she's now remembered. So the Columbia period proved fruitful but frustrating for the young singer, helping expand her talent while sticking a bridle on the gospel-owned voice behind it. And even as her critical reputation and live draw grew, she managed a handful of minor hits. And she told Free Press in 2014, "It's a fast track to the top if you've really got it going on. But I like the way I came up in the industry. It wasn't too fast, it wasn't overnight, but rather little by little. And gradually I grew in the industry. I like that more than the overnight sensation, as one might put it. I was able to learn along the way and grow at a very, very nice pace. My pace, really. I wasn't thrust into anything I wasn't ready for." So for Aretha, real success blossomed in 1967 when she declined to renew her Columbia contract and signed with Atlantic Records, where executives Amit Erdogan and Jerry Wexler saw a chance to unleash the raw power of her vocals. And her first Atlantic single, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, was cut at the burgeoning soul music hotbed Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So within weeks, it was Franklin's first #1 on Billboard's R&B chart, cracking the top 10 as well, and she was on her way to mainstream success. So as with so much of her coming work, the performance on I Never Loved a Man was fueled by a deep intensity, but with an intimate, welcoming feel that helped her connect with listeners across the board. And Ebony wrote later that year, she has never learned how to be pretentious enough to build a false image and deeply identifies with people on all levels. And she said, everybody who's living has problems and desires just as I do. When the fellow on the corner has something bothering him, he feels the same way I do. When we cry, we all gonna cry tears. And when we laugh, we all have to smile. And I'll show you guys some more pictures of her here. This was that last concert she was able to participate in, Elton John's AIDS Foundation concert in New York. So her career quickly skyrocketed, with Wexler overseeing sessions and many of the Muscle Shoals players recruited to Atlantic's New York studio. Franklin recorded a flurry of hits in the ensuing months, all of them enduring for decades as staples of her repertoire: Respect, Baby I Love You, Chain of Fools, and Ain't No Way. And she was backed on by sisters Carolyn and Irma, who enjoyed modest solo success of their own. And it looks like I got a couple Twitter messages from you guys. British Patriot and Malik Gregerson, thank you so much for that. And it looks like President Trump tweeted honoring her. I'm going to share that with you guys. He said, the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin, is dead. She was a great woman with a wonderful gift from God, her voice. She will be missed. What a nice tweet from the president. And Malik sent me her top 50 songs. Thank you so much for that. We might go through those a little bit later. So she was very independent. She was no one's puppet in the studio. And even in her earliest years, she was assertive during record sessions, crafting arrangements and dictating commands to seasoned musicians many decades her senior. So by 68, she was an iconic figure in the African American community, and she was named the Queen of Soul by the Black press, and she was now inescapably important. Her status was seconded by mainstream America that summer when she graced the cover of Time magazine. And she was not often explicitly political in public, but she embraced her anointed role just as the Black Pride movement was flowering. Respect, in particular, took on an anthem-like stature, hailed as a bold feminist and civil rights statement, though Franklin long insisted she had no grand designs when she recorded the Otis Redding tune about her household relationships. So on February 16th, 1968, which was actually declared Aretha Franklin Day by Detroit Mayor Jerome P. Kavanaugh, she performed a celebratory hometown show for 12,000. And in attendance was actually Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. 2 months before his assassination. And he took the stage to present Franklin with an award on behalf of his Southern Christian Leadership Council. So as would become typical of her story, the outward success masked a drama behind the scenes. The marriage to White in particular had become fraught, marked by domestic violence. By 1969, they were actually divorced, and she would go on to wed actor Glenn Turman in 1978, a marriage that lasted 6 years. So her hits continued to pile up. By the end of the 1960s, she'd placed 28 songs in the R&B Top 40, a mix of original material and eclectic cover songs, including work by the Beatles and the band. And the momentum carried into the following decade with a string of hit records in a 1972 gospel album, Amazing Grace, that became one of the genre's all-time bestsellers. So success on the R&B side actually continued into the 70s, even as the pop hits tapered off, though 1976's Sparkle soundtrack produced one of her abiding crossover classics. The Curtis Mayfield penned Something He Can Feel, and a scene-stealing appearance in the 1980 comedy The Blues Brothers, where Franklin performed as a waitress belting out Think, was a colorful introduction for a younger generation. In that same year, she was actually searching for a new musical direction, so she signed with Arista Records, where mogul Clive Davis helped groom a fresh career path for the singer, who was now approaching 40. So after several tries, the 1985 album Who's Zooming Who became the mainstream smash they sought, producing the hit Freeway of Love and placing Franklin in front of the MTV audience. In a duet with George Michael, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me topped the global charts 2 years later. So at this point, Aretha Franklin had spent much of the 1970s in Los Angeles. She was now permanently resettled into Metro Detroit with several area properties, including the Bloomfield Hills residence, that would remain her primary home for the next 3 decades. And her Reverend Father had died in 1984 after a 5-year coma, and he had been shot during an attempted robbery at his Detroit home. And just received a fun fact from the British Patriot. He said Aretha attended the grand opening of the Trump International Hotel and Tower in 1997. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that, British Patriot. So in the 1990s, Franklin was growing into the role of an elder soul stateswoman. She was satisfied with her status as one of pop history's greats and playing up the diva role that had just become an integral facet of her persona. And while the studio pace slowed, she released just 5 albums from 1998 through her death. Her latter-day music was generally well received, with Grammy nominations for A Rose Is Still a Rose in 1998 and So Damn Happy in 2003. And in 2011, she told the Free Press, "I'm comfortable in my own skin and my 6-inch heels." So she still performed regularly in the 90s and 2000s, and her touring work was hampered by her fear of flying, actually, which had set in after a frightening small plane trip in the early 80s. So after that, she insisted on bus travel, trekking across the U.S. to play for adoring crowds at theaters and summer amphitheaters. And she told Free Press, "I've definitely evolved to a greater maturity on stage, a savior fare, I think. It's just about relaxing more, really, and having fun with it. That comes with time to evolve to that level and find that it's really very simple, but that it's really about having fun and communicating with your audience." Okay, so I want to show you guys two. I want to find British Patriot said that there are some pictures of her with President Trump. So I want to find that for you guys at the opening of Trump Tower. So here is a picture of her and President Trump at the opening of Trump Tower. Very cool. Thank you. Okay, sorry about that. Was working something out with Joe real quick. Yes, that's a great comment from Malik Gregerson. He said, "One day I hope to get a photo with President Trump. Would be such an honor." Yes, it definitely would. So Franklin was long dogged by weight issues and actually struggled with alcohol abuse in the late 1960s. But the first glaring sign of health problems came in 2010 when she canceled 6 months of concert commitments while hospitalized for undisclosed reasons. And I want to go back, show you guys one of my favorite pictures of her. She looks stunning here, actually with bangs. So she reemerged the next summer, visibly slimmer and seemingly healthy, returning with a glowing show at the Chicago Theater. And 6 months after the world was braced for the worst, Aretha Franklin gave it her best. This is what the Free Press reported at the time. So her voice was velvety and potent as she rolled out into the set, still finding new curves and corners in the notes of songs such as Think, Sparkle, and Baby I Love You. So nevertheless, her concert activity became a hit and miss during her final years, and show cancellations became par for the course, often chalked up to unnamed health problems, and she increasingly spoke of winding things down, performing fewer shows by the year. And in February 2017, she finally raised the prospect of retirement, saying she was recording a final album. So 2 missions loomed large during the final decade of her life, and both were still in the works when she died. She was in ongoing talks to produce a biographical film about her life. frequently talking up potential lead actresses such as Jennifer Hudson, Halle Berry, and Audra McDonald, and she was enchanted by the idea of opening a soul food restaurant in downtown Detroit. So she was actually reclusive by nature. She liked being at home and enjoying the small things, as she read in 2011, polishing the silver, buying a tea set, washing and ironing. She was a reader drawn to biographies and an avid media consumer who looked forward to her daily newspapers. And she said, "I enjoy the comfort of home very much. I'm very domestic when I'm at home. I can stay in the house for the longest kind of time and not get out." So her public situations skewed to the larger than life, the supersized, and the majestic, and she was an immense presence, and she could take over rooms simply by sweeping into them. So she had a knack for finding herself at the center of grand moments, whether stealing the show at the Obama inaugural or filling in for the ailing Luciano Pavarotti with an impromptu Decent Dorma at the 1998 Grammys. And I want to move on a little bit. We might come back to this, but I want to share with you guys some fun facts about her. And this is from smoothradio.com. So she's actually a mother of 4 sons. She started having children very young. She first became pregnant at age 12 and gave birth to her first child, Clarence. And he was named after her father in 1955. And then at age 14, she had a second child named Edward, after his father, Edward Jordan. And while she was pursuing her career, her grandmother, Rachel, and sister Irma took turns raising the children. And her third child, Ted White Jr., was born in 1964 and is known professionally as Teddy Richards. And her youngest son, Keycloth Cunningham, was born in 1970 and is the child of her road manager, Ken Cunningham. So she actually married twice, first to Theodore Ted White in 1961 at age 19. And this was, as I mentioned earlier, a difficult marriage. It involved domestic violence, and they separated in 1968. And I want to show you guys a picture of Aretha and Ted. So you can tell she was very young, just 19 years old when she got married. And she married her second husband, Glenn Thurman, in 1978. And she actually became a stepmother to his 3 children from a previous marriage. So I'm going to pull up a picture of Aretha and Glenn Thurman for you guys. Glenn Turman, I'm sorry. And this was one of their sons. So they divorced in 1984, and she planned to marry longtime companion Willie Wilkerson, but she eventually called the 2012 engagement off. So her parents were Barbara, originally singers, and Clarence Franklin. And as we mentioned, her father was a preacher from Shelby, Mississippi, while her mother was a talented piano player and singer. And her parents also had 3 other children, But both Clarence and Barbara had children from outside their marriage. The family relocated to Buffalo, New York when Aretha was 2. And before her 5th birthday, and her mom was also known as C.L. Franklin. So if I say C.L., I mean her mom. Before her 5th birthday, C.L. Franklin permanently relocated the family to Detroit, Michigan. And this is her father, where he took over the pastorship of New Bethel Baptist Church. And her parents had a troubled marriage, and in 1948 they separated, with Barbara relocating back to Buffalo with her son Vaughn from a previous relationship. So contrary to popular public belief, Aretha's mother did not abandon her children. Aretha recalled seeing her mother in Buffalo during the summer, and Barbara also frequently visited her children in Detroit. Aretha's mother died in 1952 before her 10th birthday, and several women, including her grandmother Rachel and Mahalia Jackson, took turns helping with the children, and her father died in 1984 at the age of 69. And I want to show you guys a picture of her when she was younger. I really like this one. And if you guys have one of her favorite songs and maybe why you want to tell us what it means to you, please send it over here in the YouTube chat, or you can send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN, and I would be glad to sell that with you guys. So another fun fact, you may be wondering, how many records has she sold? So she's one of the best-selling artists of all time, having sold over 75 million records worldwide. And she's released 42 studio albums, and her biggest hit in the UK was her George Michael duet, I Knew You Were Waiting For Me, in 1987, which reached #1. So she's been honored with many awards and nominations throughout her career, and these include 18 Grammy Awards. In 2007, she won a Golden Globe for her Never Gonna Break My Faith from the movie Bobby, and in 2018, she was named the most popular female artist in America in a YouGov US poll. And she sang at the inaugurations of 3 American presidents, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. And President Barack Obama said of his emotional response to her performance of Natural Woman at the 2015 Kennedy Center Honors, he said, "American history wells up when Aretha sings. Nobody embodies more fully the connection between the African American spiritual, the blues, R&B, rock and roll, the way that hardship and sorrow were transformed into something full of beauty and vitality and hope." And I'm going to share some more information with you guys, kind of a timeline of her career. And it looks like, let's see, over here on YouTube, Mr. D.E. Banks commented that his favorite song by her is Respect. That's definitely a favorite today. It's so good. When I heard the news this morning, it was definitely heartbreaking, but I just started listening to her music, and it was so beautiful and so soulful. And I wanted to take a second and kind of share with you guys some information about RSBN. Maybe if you're not familiar, want to share with you guys kind of what we are and what we do. So we are a conservative news network, but we try to be non-biased and give you guys both sides of the story. And so we actually get to travel to President Trump rallies all around the country. They're so fantastic. There's thousands of people there, and we really make it our goal. And I'm going to switch over real quick. We really make it our goal to show you guys those crowds, because, you know, the mainstream media does not show the crowds. They always underreport the number of people there. So we really make it our goal to pan the crowd and to show you guys who is actually there. And of course, going to these rallies, as you can imagine, is very expensive. It's at least $5,000 each time. We usually send a crew of about 5 so that we have enough people to accurately cover the whole crowd. And it's really expensive just with travel, with flights, you know, rental cars, food, and we have to also pay just a couple $100 every time we have that live view unit up where we're live streaming back to you guys. So it is very expensive. We're not able to go without your donations. And I want to give a shout out to everyone that has donated to RSBN. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you guys and couldn't do it without you. So real quick, some different ways you can donate. You can click the $ right down here in the super chat. It is the super chat button, the $ to the right of the emoji button, and you can add whatever amount you want, and your name will come up with a message, and I will share that with the whole world in a bright color. So that's a really fun way to donate. And yes, Light Switch, we do have a rally Tuesday in Charleston, West Virginia. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. Really appreciate you guys. So anyways, you know, as you can imagine, like I said, these rallies are really expensive. Can't do it without you. Other ways you can donate, you can go to our website, rsbnetwork.com/donate. You'll see the different ways there. The first one, it shows you can use PayPal or a debit or credit card. Super easy, secure way to donate. You can also go to patreon.com/RSBN, and that's Patreon with an E. You can see 2 of our great moderators, Barbara Braley and Webster Cal, just commented those links. Thank you guys so much. So you can go to Patreon, especially if you feel, you know, a little more invested with RSBN. You've been watching us for a long time. You really like us, and you want to see us be able to go to, you know, more of these rallies and to bring you broadcasts just like this one you're seeing right now. And Patreon's really fun because you actually get something in return. So you get, you know, hats, pens, pencils, and mugs, just like this one, if it'll focus on it, with our logo on it. Drinking my coffee this morning. So anyways, that's something great you'll get in return, and sometimes even, you know, t-shirts, fleece blankets with our logos on it. We were working on, we sent those out during one of our last rallies where we actually had a contest. We do a contest at each rally, and you're actually able to enter the first entry without even donating. You just go to rsbnetwork.com/enter, and then after that, every $25 donation is an entry. So a really fun way to enter. And of course, if you're not comfortable donating online, we completely understand and respect that. You can actually send a check to our address. You just write it out to RSBN. And it is 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama 36830. So you're able to mail in checks to us as well. It was such an honor just the other day going through those checks with Joe, seeing all of your handwritten letters. So thankful for them, and so thankful to know what we mean to you guys and how we can help to serve you better in the future. So I want to move on now back to Aretha, and I'm going to go through a timeline with you guys of her career. So at the age of 14, her talent for singing was actually recognized by her father, who started managing her to get her a recording deal. And in 1956, her first album came out under the JVB Records label, Songs of Faith. And in 1960, she was signed by the Columbia Records after she persuaded her father to let her record pop music. And her popular single, Today I Sung the Blues, was released in the same year, and it reached the Hot Rhythm and Blues Sellers chart. So in 1961, her debut pop album came out with Columbia Records after she persuaded her father, in with Columbia Records titled Aretha with the Ray Bryant Combo. And the album was an instant hit with the American listeners, and the hit single Rockabye catapulted her into an international star. So in 1962, the same recording company released two of her albums, the electrifying Aretha Franklin and the tender, the moving, the swinging Aretha Franklin. And by this time, she was called the new star female vocalist by A-list magazines. So from 1964 to 66, she released various hit singles like Running Out of Fools, One Step Ahead, Cry Like a Baby, You Made Me Love You, etc. under Columbia Records. And she also appeared on shows like Hollywood A Go-Go. And in 1967, she signed to Atlantic Records and released I Never Love a Man the Way I Love You, which topped the R&B chart in the Billboard Hot 100 with hit singles like Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, Respect, etc. And in 1968, she released albums Lady Soul and Aretha Now with Atlantic Records, giving hit singles like I Say a Little Prayer, Think, and she also received 2 Grammys and SCLC Drumbeat Awards for musicians. So in the 1970s, she released albums like Spirit in the Dark, Young, Gifted, and Black, Hey Now Hey, You, and Sweet Passion. And she also released her first gospel album, which really took off, Amazing Grace. And during the same years, she recorded her first live album, Aretha Live at Fillmore West, and she gave out hit singles like Angel, Until You Come Back to Me, I'm in Love, and she also worked on the soundtrack of the movie Sparkle. So in 1980, she signed the Aretha Records and gave a memorable performance for the Queen of England at the Royal Albert Hall. And she also did a cameo in the musical The Blues Brothers in the same year. So during the same time, Aretha was released, and she got nominated for a Grammy for one of the singles from the album I Can't Turn You Loose. And a hit single, United Together, made to the number 3 on the R&B chart. So in 1981, she released her album Love All the Hurt Away, and this included her famous duet with George Benson, Hold On I'm Comin', which eventually fetched her Grammy, and it was her 11th Grammy so far. So in 1985, Jump To It was released, and it was a gold standard album and huge commercial hit after almost 7 years. And the single from the album, the same title, ranked on the top 40 single on the pop charts. So then in 1985, she released Who's Zoomin' Who, which became her first platinum album and sold over 1 million copies. It included hit singles like Freeway of Love and Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves. So in 1987, she released another gospel album titled One Lord, One Faith, One Baptism, which was followed by another one, Through the Storm. And around the same time, her album What You See Is What You Sweat was released. So in 1988, her album A Rose Is Still a Rose was released, which turned out to be of gold standard. And during the same time, she gave a performance at the Grammy Awards singing Nessun Dorma and received international acclaim for it. So from 2004 to 2009, she released albums like So Damn Happy, Jewels in the Crown, all-star duets with the Queen, and This Christmas 'Tis of Thee. And she also performed at President Barack Obama's inaugural ceremony. So from 2010 to 2013, she recorded an album under her own label, Aretha, A Woman Falling Out of Love, and she was honored by a degree from Yale University. And then she continued to work under RCA Records. So some awards and achievements. She was actually the winner of 18 Grammy Awards, and she received these awards between the period of 1968 to 2008 for hit singles like Respect, Don't Play That Song, Freeway of Love, Wonderful, A House Is Not a Home, Chain of Fools, and others. And she was the winner of 3 American Music Awards in the category of Favorite Soul R&B Female Artist in between the years of 1976-1983. And she was also the first female artist ever to have been inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. So some trivia about her. She suffered from weight problems almost all of her life. She also suffered from alcoholism and was a chain smoker until 1992. In 2005, as I just mentioned, she was inducted into the UK Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she was honored with the National Medal of Arts and Presidential Medal of Freedom. And she was famous in the 80s for wearing extravagant dresses and actually nightgowns in her shows and concerts. And I want to find some of those fun outfits she wore for you guys. I'm going to go through and show you guys a few. This one is a lot of fun. So a little bit from biography.com. She had more than 20 number 1 R&B hits and singles sales that have long since surpassed the $10 million mark, with nearly 50 top 40 hits and 18 Grammy Awards to her name. Aretha Franklin is easily one of the most recognizable musical icons and greatest of all time. So like I mentioned earlier, she started out in the middle of the 1950s singing in her father's church choir. And then she was an actress too. In 1980, she signed a contract with Aretha Records and also appeared in the popular film The Blues Brothers. And one of her greatest accomplishments, in 1987, she became the first woman to earn induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And she underlined the honor with the release of her number 1 duet with George Michael, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me. And also a really cool picture I want to show you guys when she actually received the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President George W. Bush. Really awesome. You can see she is just honored, wiping away tears from her eyes. And this was November 9th, 2005. So after releasing the duet album Jewels in the Crown in 2007, she left Aretha to start Aretha Records, and following surgery in 2010, she released her debut on her new label, Aretha, A Woman Falling Out of Love. And 3 years later, with the cover of the Adele song Rolling in the Deep, she became the first woman in history to have 100 songs in the R&B charts. And though she continued to record and tour until the end, she performed publicly at everything from President Barack Obama's 2009 inauguration of Super Bowl XL and to the Late Show with David Letterman. And during the 2010s, she frequently canceled appearances due to health issues. And in keeping with the private manner in which she guarded her personal life, the cause of death has not yet to be made public. She is survived by her 4 sons. And like I said, if any of you have comments you want to share with me, some of her favorite songs or kind of what she really meant to you, how she impacted your life, please send it to me on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN, or you can comment right here in the YouTube chat. And I'm going to refresh Twitter, make sure I don't have anything new from you guys yet. Thank you, Manning Luck, for your kind comment. Really appreciate you. And checking Facebook too. Darlene Abernathy said prayers out to the family and friends. She will be missed. And John Ballou commented some song lyrics from her. If there's water in the pitcher and we both need a drink, I can stay alive, my darling, much longer than you think. And Manning Luck said, when's the next rally? Thank you for responding. Barbara Braley, it is next Tuesday, August 21st in Charleston, West Virginia. And a cool fact, many of you have been commenting Elvis Presley also died on August 16th, back in 1977. Okay, yes, Manning Luck, glad you are ready. Make sure to tune in to that rally. It's going to be a great time. Really excited to really bring you guys into the action. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be so much fun. Of course, we will be doing a pre-show Monday night, and we'll be doing a post-show after that rally Tuesday night as well. And stay tuned because he'll probably have rallies the next couple days after. We're not sure yet, but we will be ready to travel to wherever we need to go to bring you guys the best coverage we can. And wanted to let you know I'm not actually having a nightly news recap tonight because I'm going home to help my sister move into college. So I will not be on today anymore tonight or tomorrow. But stay tuned because I'll be back Monday night for that post show. Wanted to thank you guys all for tuning in to this broadcast. Just keep Aretha Franklin's family and friends in your prayers right now as they mourn the loss of the legendary singer. And thank you guys so much for tuning in for a great week, for all of your support, all of your Facebook comments, YouTube comments, Twitter messages. Really appreciate each and every single one of you. And just got a donation, $2 from Manning Luck. Thank you very much. He said, let's get ready to rally. Yes, it is going to be a great time next Tuesday. So make sure to tune in. And like I said, tune in Monday night for that pre-show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate each and every single one of you. And once again, for Right Side Broadcasting Network, I'm Alyssa Ashe. Have a great one.